Yeah. Kind of get my screens lined up. There we go. All right, it's Thursday night. It's 8 o'clock Central. I'm Cole House, my brother Samuel, and the lady of the hour, Jamie Sweet, founder of Shorty Bulls. I like it. I love it.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's cool to
Yeah,
be able to put your name and your stamp on something like that hard. Like, that's cool.
yeah, it was cool. Oh,
Uh-oh, there it is. Let's see it. Hold,
somebody wants to get in the movie here.
There we go.
hold, hold him up. Let's see him. Is it a boy or a girl?
Is that the dachshund? Is that a weenie dog?
It
Yeah, this
is.
is the dachshund.
Oh
This is
There we
no.
non-bully. This is what non-bully looks like. If you read my post today, this is not bully,
Hold on.
Yeah,
but he's
I
not
like
supposed
it.
to be. Okay. Oh, whoa, gosh.
I can't hold him.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Pip.
They got
So
bully
exciting.
personality though.
You know what? They really do. I was really amazed at that, and that's really neat. They do.
Yeah,
They have a lot of grit. Yeah, little hunters. They're pretty neat dogs, and they're
yeah,
very capable for what they're. You know, he surprised me a lot with what he could do.
yeah. You don't think about how high the couch is until you see a little dog like that jump up
Right.
on it. You're like,
Right.
he
Yeah.
jumped over his head,
Uh-huh.
way
Yeah.
over his head.
I wasn't prepared for that, but I was really impressed by that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's good for us to be around other breeds and stuff, even if we think they're not a breed for us. I mean, look what all I learned here,
yeah,
with the
yeah.
little dog. Yeah, so
They're,
that was pretty
they're
neat.
dogs. They're
Yeah.
dogs. They come in all packages, all shapes and sizes, and
Hmm.
especially
Yeah.
okay. The subject comes up a lot about conformation versus breed type and things like that. And the
Hmm.
dachshund is a really, really good example to me of form following function. What
Right.
that dog was bred to do, he was designed to do it.
Tell everybody what he was bred to do, because that's real interesting too. If you don't know, this is interesting.
Badger dog.
Yeah,
A badger
dachshund.
dog, and
Yeah,
badgers are tough.
Yeah.
Hmm.
yeah.
A honey
hmm
badger. Is that the same thing as a regular badger?
I think it's just different variety of it, whatever, whatever. But and the thing about it to me, the psyche of it is that thing's in a dark hole.
Yes, a little hole in the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So
Hmm.
just to go in there into the unknown takes a
Head
certain type
first.
of yes,
Yeah.
head first, reckless abandon.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so people call them dash hounds, and my stomach kind of turns a little bit because the name actually means something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. hmm Okay,
Yeah.
so since we're talking about dog breeds,
Yes.
this this is one thing I want to ask you.
Okay.
Very, very open-ended question, right?
Hmm.
From the bulldog breeds that you have dealt with extensively, English Bulldog, American Bulldog, Old English Bulldog. We're gonna exclude the Shorty Bull for discussion.
Okay. Okay.
Can you kind of like compare and contrast them, the differences you've seen, similarities you've seen,
Sure.
maybe which one you like
Sure.
better?
Yes, I'll tell you how I did this. Um, as far back as I can remember, like I was born, they had my parents had English Bulldogs. And, the English Bulldogs 60 years ago looked a little different than they do today, but they're still, you can tell a Bulldog, when you see one.
Yeah,
The type is still, the type. It's just, it changes a little bit. Um, so I grew up with those. And I can say, there's different kinds of English Bulldogs. There's some that are massively overdone, and that does affect how they function. And I wanted a more active, little livelier Bulldog. And
okay.
so when I saw the American Bulldog, um, I thought that was the dog of my dreams. It was everything I wanted. It was a bully. It was big. It had a big presence to it, and I loved that. And I got my first one from Mountain Gator Kennels. And she turned out to be really nice, even though when I bought her, she was like last pick. Took a chance on that. She turned out to be really nice. And so anyway, that just kind of started the little, I bought a few more after that. And that was some of the first dogs that I spent a lot of money on,
hmm
which was, which was, it was a lot then. And so we invested in those. Like really, we did our research and looked around and got, got the ones we wanted, got the ones that we thought were, going to do it for us. And I really liked them. They were really big back then. We had several that were, over 100 pounds. We weight pulled and stuff, and had a lot of males that were 118 to 120 pounds. And the females, we even had some big females that were about 105, 107 pounds. So that was all good for a long time, a lot of years. And then I decided, I really like the bully ones. And so I was going to the airport one day and I saw the first oldie I'd ever seen. And that was one of those things where I saw it and, I almost broke my neck looking at it. So I had to stop. I had to, turn around, go around the block or whatever. And then it was still safe to, go knock on the door and tell somebody they had a cool dog and they'd show you the dog. And that's what I did. Heard about this oldie. So, man, that's all I had on my brain and was the oldie Bulldog, Old English. And we'd look in the back of Dog World and we'd see the Georgia Bulldog. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Georgia Bulldog, but, it was a bully or bulldog. And I'd see it and I really liked it. And the Alapaha Bulldogs, they were in there. Wanted something a little bullier. Anyway, the oldie was just it. So I called a couple registries to see. I wanted to make my own. I had these American Bulldogs that were, they were bully for American Bulldogs and the lines I thought should work. And I had the English Bulldogs. So I called and, they didn't know what to think really, but he heard me out. They listened to me and they said, well, send us some pictures and, let's talk and let's see. It wasn't just a guaranteed yes, And so we did that. And then I crossed them together and I was allowed to, to do that. That was an honorable thing. And, I wanted to do it right. I didn't want to, hang any papers or anything like that, because I just wanted it right. And, so then we started with the oldies and I really enjoyed the oldies and gosh, I think I had some beautiful oldies, we had a lot of oldies and, they were the cutest, fattest little puppies. And then as they grew about 1 year, the puppiness kind of fell off and the muscle hardened up and their heads, started to widen about a year old. Anyway, they were some real bruisers. I was so proud of them. They were beautiful. And we did that for a long time. And in the process, I just kept getting older and older and older. And, I made the Shorty Bulls because I needed something smaller, but it was still had all the stuff that drew me to the Bulldogs anyway. I like the grit. I like the tenacity. I like the look. I like bully, but I like functional. I don't want to have a dog that can't do anything. I don't want to carry it everywhere. I don't want to worry too much, about it all the time. So, it had to have that. And I can say that was one of the main things, in all the dogs we bred, and we did well with that. Yeah. But I love a Bulldog, and I think a Bulldog will always be an eye catcher to those that like Bulldogs. Some people really don't like them. Some people love them. Yeah. It's just personal, but I love it. I want to make everything bullier. That's how much I love it.
People that don't like them haven't been around them.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're around them for any length of time, they're gonna get you. They're gonna You're gonna shoot that side eye at you, and you're like, "Is this dog judging me and deciding that I'm lacking in this moment?" Like, yeah.
One thing I really loved about them, and people don't understand it when I say this, but I've had a lot of dogs in my life, and we do have thinking dogs, and we have really smart dogs, and you have to be as smart as the dog, or that dog can do things and maybe get in a little bit of trouble. But I always say this about the Bulldogs: they're so curious about things. Their brain is different than a regular dog, and I say they're too dumb to be scared. That's not negative when I say that.
Yeah.
Man, that's how their nerves are. You know?
I always say I like a little bit of dumb in them.
Yeah, I like that about them. I like that courageous curiosity, whatever it is,
Yeah.
But they do things. They do things that other dogs, if it hurts or something, they might shy away from it the next time, but not a Bulldog. So you have to you have to use that, to your advantage and know that. And it's really an awesome thing.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
It is. It is. They definitely think for themselves,
Oh, yeah.
and they'll do exactly what you want if it's basically what they want to do, anyways. No
I
problem.
know. I always hear that bulldogs are stubborn, Oh, they're stubborn. They're stubborn. But I just don't agree with that. You just have to change your thinking when you're getting in the head of a bulldog. It's just a different
Yeah,
kind of training, basically.
it is. It
Hmm.
is. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, but
It's cooperative.
I don't ever think it's stubborn. I mean, they're not
Yeah,
thinking, I don't want to do that for you. You're just talking a foreign language. You have to speak their language.
yeah. So, do you think the difference between the different bulldog breeds is mainly the body type, the personality, kind of the same?
I think it's both. It's a body type. They do it. They do have similarities, of course. Bully's a broad term.
Hmm.
And your standard should describe the intensity of bully that's wanted to be ideal. And it's also an action too. My dad used to always say, bulldog's a verb. It's what they do. And some,
I like it.
yeah,
I like it.
yeah, that is what they do. Um, if you're comparing a bulldog to, a shepherd or something, the bulldog's going to go for the front end of the bull. If we turned them loose with a bull in a pen, it should go for the front end, for the nose, where the shepherds are more herding, so they're the
Hmm.
back end.
Yeah.
One's supposed to grip and hang on, one's supposed to nip the heels so the animals move forward. So what they do is very different too. And we can tone that down and stuff, but we still see traces of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just in them like that.
It is.
That's what they were bred for a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I guys want to know Shorty Bulls.
The Shorty Bull.
I like these little dogs. Okay, I've only been to a handful of dog shows. The first
Uh-huh.
time I seen one, I was like, "What is that little bulldog?"
Yeah.
It screamed out bulldog to me, but I thought maybe it was a puppy. You know what I
Right.
mean? I didn't know exactly what I was seeing, but I was
Right.
drawn to it. And lately,
Right.
I just like the more I understand structure and things like that, I'm like, "That's a clean little bulldog." Like I really
Yeah.
dig it.
I'd done so many dogs before I got to the Shorty Bull.
Mhm.
I'd learned so much about structure and movement and function and form and breeding and how things cross up and what passes. And then I did my own tests, because I'm not just a believer. I've got to try it out myself. I got to
Right?
try it out myself and find out, is it a fluke? Did I do that? Can I count on that? And so in doing that, the reason I made Shorty Bulls in the first place was I wanted a little badass dog when I was an old lady. I didn't want a fine boned little, long haired thing. I wanted one that was still a bulldog and, had a little grit, but one that I could take with me,
You don't want nothing with poo at the end of it.
Huh?
Nothing
What?
with poo at the end of it. Multi
Yeah.
poo, whatever poo.
No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. No, I wanted one that, was like people would look at it, if they'd never seen one and just like a dog, cock their head like, what is that? What kind? It's not a Boston. It's not this.
Yeah.
It's not, what is it?
Yeah.
And, but I want him to know it was bulldog. So, of course I like bully stuff, but, when I got into doing it, I was so into proving everything from the other breeds of dogs we had, because we showed a lot, we weight pulled a lot, we worked in protection. I mean, we did a lot of things that were pass fail, like the ATS test, different things like that are definitely a pass fail, not just
Okay.
an opinion. Yeah. So when I first started these, I was really into pass fail stuff, and I really wanted to prove that these were not just a designer dog. These were not just a designer dog. These were like the all-around dog. Look what all they could do. They could do a
Right.
little of a lot of things. They can do this. They can run. They can jump. I did the Iron Dog with Moby, and we completed that in the run, the 12-mile run, me on a bike, the dog running. It was awesome. And I had developed some little breed capability tests. So, you could just easily prove that, these dogs were worthy and that they, had function and they could adapt to a lot of different styles. You don't have to do all those things with them. You
But
know,
it's available.
they'll
they
adapt
can.
to your lifestyle. But,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it, I wanted to make it so it fit me now and then it fit me later. It fit families with kids because my kids were pretty, you never knew what the kids were going to do with the dogs. I'd have dogs that, were good with kids, like, because my kids were Dennis the Menace. You
Mhm.
never knew what, they might tie one to the bicycle and, yeah. And, ride around the block, or they might, I don't know. One time they put them in the treehouse, gave them all bowls of Kool-Aid, and then they kids got down. And when I went outside, there's the puppies in the treehouse, you know. So, yeah, I had to have something that had a little bit of sense to it and was durable.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And so that came into the equation too. And then I just really liked the look of them. I loved the look of them. I wanted that muscle. I wanted correct conformation, of course.
Yeah.
And I want him to be a fun dog that you could do a lot of things with, And I
Yeah.
wanted minimal grooming because I'm not a dog groomer. I wanted minimal vet visits. And I want him to have an iron gut. I did not want him to have to eat special food and special
Oh
this
my
and
goodness,
that. And,
right?
yeah, I want him really durable,
Yeah.
because it's fun to get a dog. But if you've never had a dog and you get a dog, if it comes to you and the first night it's never been in a crate, so it cries all night, then you have to buy special food. And, it takes the fun out of it when, you get a good socialized pup that's a little bit tough and it's been by itself, a little bit before you get it. Then you just see the good, and it's good for everybody. It's good for the pup. It's good for the new home. It's good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was important to me too,
Yeah. 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 That's very important. I know that I've dealt with a dog with allergies before,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't wish it on nobody.
No
You know,
kidding. No
because
kidding. And
there's a whole industry out there after your dog allergy dollar. Like there's a whole thing.
oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just go down a lot of rabbit holes with different things. And, I just wanted one that I didn't have to worry so much about. I just wanted to do the fun stuff, really. I didn't want to do all the extra,
Yeah.
so it had to be durable. And then like I said, I was into proving, everything we had to prove. Well, what I found out, after all these years is that people want, what a lot of people want is a dog that they love to look at, that plays well with their kids. If they have kids, fits their lifestyle. They want to come home to a happy dog that they can play with and not stress out about, and
Hmm.
that's just so much better, then it's really a great addition to a family. And I believe that oldies are great family dogs. They fit a lot of families.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
do. Yeah.
they do. I feel Shorty Bulls are very adaptable to that too. I feel like American Bulldogs, that's a little too much if you've never had a dog, I believe. And
Yeah.
so you might want to start off with something, a little less than that. They're big, and they're for not really for novices per se.
Yeah. I would say that you need to have something that you could manhandle if you have to.
Correct. Right.
You can't
That's
just be
definitely
pulling
true.
at his whims. You know what I mean? It just
Right.
that at least I never want to be, and I would never want anybody else to be either. Like, no, you gotta if you can't gorilla snatch him and walk off, then
Right.
and you don't want it to
Right.
come to
And
that, but you have to have that available.
if you have American Bulldogs, you need like heavy duty fence. They can't go through. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's a lot. And if you've had American Bulldogs and then you go to something smaller like I did, the first time you load the car for the show with Shorty Bull crates, you're like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I can
Yeah.
fit all these in here and they fit. Yeah.
Yeah. They're happy.
Yeah. So it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I like them. They're awesome little dogs. How long did the process take? I know people have big discussions and big
They do.
theoretical stuff about how many generations and all
Well,
that, but
I'm going to
how
tell you the real of this.
that's all I
You'll
want.
read it takes 7 generations. Well, that's if everything goes right. It's about that long. But I've never known a program where everything went right for 7 generations. I don't think it's possible.
Hmm.
You can get on the better side of good, but you're not going to just do something for 7 generations and it's magically here. Okay. So, if you've bred dogs for very long, you know, everything you breed is not a show dog to make a show dog. Okay. And there's some dogs that aren't show dogs, and they're not tools, and they're not brood stock. They're just better left as pets with no reproductive organs.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to make a breed is about, it's not about one dog or 2 or 10. It's about a population of dogs that have a consistent look and type, and, you know, they're consistent, not identical, but consistent. So the number of dogs you start with is going to greatly affect how long it takes you. Your experience in dogs is going to greatly affect how long it takes you to get the look locked in. You know, just think of when you started breeding compared to now, how much your eyes change, how much you've learned. We're constantly learning, you know?
Yeah, we
And
talked about
so
that this week, the mistake that I won't make again.
that was a doozy too. That's going to haunt you forever, you know?
Yeah.
But we all have some stuff like that. But yeah, then that all depends. And then it depends on, you know, how much you change your mind after you get started. Are you going to go with every little trend that comes along? I mean, are you going to throw something out because, you know, it's not cool to have that style of head anymore? And so all those things affect it. But, you know, I wouldn't recommend even trying this. I mean, you can mess around with a couple dogs, but that's a whole lifetime and then some to get to a breed. You know, you can get a cool couple little dogs, but, you know, a breed's a whole different thing. And the hard part is people get excited about it before it's done. Okay. That's the hardest part of all, because, you know, you're trying to guide it. You're trying to tell them, hey, this is what it should be. But then at the same time, it's going to change, because I wanted to lock in the frame first. I wanted the frame really solid, because I think, you know what I think a breed's a breed? I think a breed's a breed when a novice can get 2 of the same breed out of the newspaper under Hoobly, breed them together, and they resemble the breed. Well, you know, nobody puts their dogs in Hoobly anymore, but you could do that with beagles or something. You could do that. You could get 2 beagles. You could breed them. They're still going to be recognizable as beagles, you know, but when it's new, it can, you know, if you have, you know, it's going to lean towards whatever, you know, you got to really look at the look, and you got to just take everything out of your head and just look. Is it leaning too far to the Bulldog? Is it leaning too far to the Frenchie? Is it leaning towards this because that's what I like? But you have to stay down the middle with the ones that are ideal, you know. Not everyone's ideal, but, you know, it's just, it's like baking cake, you know. The first time you bake a cake, you're going to get a mix. You're going to follow the directions. Hey, it's probably going to turn out half decent. You know, if the people that you're serving it to, if they don't bake cake, they're probably going to love it. You know, if that's the wedding cake at somebody's wedding, you know, and it's the same cake, that's probably not going to be, people are probably going to be like, oh, where'd you get that baker? You know, so the more you do it, the better you get at it. But it takes a lot of room. And I don't think you could do it without having all the dogs that I had and the knowledge that I got from that beforehand. I mean, you know, that's a whole lifetime of dog stuff, dog breeding, dog mistakes, you know, that I learned from that. And that's why I think it came together for me. Without that, I don't know if you could. I don't know.
Right.
You know, because we change a lot from the first dog we get to, you know, till now. I mean, we've all gone through a couple breeds before we settled on this, you know, bully thing, I imagine. I know I did. And a lot of my friends have done that.
I had a Hakani Corso before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I could handle him, but if I wasn't around or whatever, like, it was just, I felt like he was a liability.
Right. Yeah, and that's no fun to feel that way about your dog, you know? I mean, that'll just stress you out while you're away, while you're at work, you know?
I felt like my wife was very safe.
Right.
But if this dog went off, there was no stopping it, no, you know.
Right. And how big are they? Like real weight, like how big? I know they're big.
Let's see. I think 120, 110. I think males, like the standard's like between 110 and 130. I think something like that.
That's a lot of dogs. I mean, my brother had the English Mastiffs, and he was gone one day, and the dog was sick, and so it was up to me to get the dog to the vet, and the dog had gone down. That was
Yeah.
the end of that. I never wanted one after that. I mean, it was like loading a horse in the car. It took me so long to. It was a big, huge thing, and we don't think about that when we're getting a little puppy. Well, I mean, when new people buy puppies, it's a crazy thing. They're drawn to a look, of course, first, and then maybe don't realize what they got into that comes natural with that dog. Or, I mean, if you want a dog to stay around, but you like the look of a hound, it's going to put its head down and it's going to walk off on a track, and that may not be right, but it's a cute puppy with big ears and, whatever. Yeah. So I think, we have to try out a few things, I think that's real natural.
We had some sheep, so I got a Great Pyrenees.
Oh,
all
yeah?
All he did was chase cars all night on the highway.
Oh, no. Oh, it'll come. It'll come.
Yeah.
Those are big dogs, too. You like big dogs.
I do.
Yeah. They are cool.
I'm trying to curb it, trying to turn it down a little bit, because just having a dog that only I can handle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what curbs that? When you get older and your knees can't take one more hit from the dog, and that'll curb that, and you'll be like, "Ooh, I gotta get this down here because I still want to have a dog." But yeah,
I got you. What are you saying, bro?
He said he likes big dogs, but the Bulldogs are pockets.
Yeah.
The ones he has. Yeah.
What dogs do you have, Samuel?
I have oldies too.
Oh, cool. Okay.
A little bigger.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. It's fun when you have a partner, a brother, a buddy, somebody, in it with you. Oh my gosh, that's when it really gets fun.
Yeah.
It was my first dog too, though. So my first dog breed, really. So.
Oh, really? So what do you think so far?
They're awesome. Everything I wanted in a dog: big, nice,
good.
Energy levels just right.
That's a main thing.
Yeah.
I like that they're capable, but they don't necessarily require it every day.
Right.
If you don't,
let's just be honest. Cool. Yeah, let's just be honest. We're not going to exercise a dog every day. I mean, it's just who has time in their day for that every single day? It's hard to fit that in. Yeah. When I had the American Bulldogs, though, if we didn't do that, then something got torn up, like the water bucket or something, the fence or the gate or so we had to get them. We had to get them out every day and let them get it out of their system, because yes, we had to. Yeah. And that's one thing I like, because I'm older, I'm not going to do miles and miles with the dog anymore. And I don't feel bad saying that. There's a lot of people that just really aren't, Yeah. And so they need something that's, geared towards their lifestyle too. I don't think every dog needs to run miles and miles and swim the river and all that jazz, A little bit of that stuff fits me perfectly.
Yeah. They need to be capable of it, though.
They need to be capable of it, but not too capable,
Yeah.
No, don't take that the wrong way. But, they have different activity levels, and, you really want to get one that's suited to match yours. Yeah.
I'll say something out loud and for public. Our fences are 4 feet high here.
Your dogs can't get over them either.
No, but they don't. Their mind doesn't even click. Like, I'm gonna jump over this fence.
Yeah,
yours are 4 feet tall too. Your dog don't go out of them.
Really?
So when people say, "Oh, my dog jumped a 6-foot fence," I'm like, that just sounds like another job to me. Like, how are you going to contain?
You know what? I even have shorties that can. I have shorties that need a lid on the kennel with a 6-foot fence because they can get their feet in, but it's almost like they have to see another one do it. Like, and then So, but I have a few that have, they can do that. I mean, really, they're kind of amazing. Not all of them are equally amazing, but some are really amazing.
So, I have at this time I have the Corso that I told you about. My parents have a boxer that I'm kind of babysitting while they get ready to move over here, and I have his Chihuahua in my house.
Oh no! And the Chihuahua's the one that's the biggest handful.
The Corso never disrespected my fence. The boxer came right in, never disrespected my fence. The Chihuahua shows up in the backyard and he's like, "Look, stupid, right there, right there." By the end of the day, everybody's in the street.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what this little dachshund did when they were home for Christmas? I didn't know he could open crates. He can just jiggle a wire cage handle, let him out, and he is very good at it. I watched him do it. I was blown away. Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah, He's set a couple of them loose. They had a big time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And,
they're really smart.
So
I'll tell you what. Go ahead, bro.
how do you end up? So with the Shorty Bull, what'd you breed down from? Is it a Bulldog and a Frenchie? How'd you?
Yeah, Bulldog and a Frenchie and a Staffordshire Bull Terrier.
Okay.
And not just any example of the breed. You know, that's one thing that I think people maybe lose track of a little bit. Just because it's an English Bulldog in no way means it's the right English Bulldog. Just because it's a champion. Like a champion English Bulldog is far from what I wanted to put in the Shorty Bulls. Far. When you read the standard for an English Bulldog, you know, it calls for different features that I personally have no use for. I don't like the big, the rise over the loins that much, you know. I want to have a curve in that stifle so they have some shock absorption. I don't want straight stifles, you know, on them.
Yeah.
You know, just things like that. I don't want the head set right on the shoulders. You know, I want a little bit of a neck, but an arch in it, you know, things like that. So when I say the English Bulldogs I use wouldn't win a conformation show in the AKC, I don't mean they're a piece of crap, but they don't have the features that standard calls for,
Right.
you know? And so that I did that because those dogs just, because of that, they move differently, you know, of course. And it was just more suitable for what I wanted. Like, I want that kind. I knew that I could get the other, you know, the ones that are ideal. Of course, you know, there's some behind that, but you know, the Bulldogs I used were very different, and they didn't have, you know, all the wrinkles on their feet and their nose and all that stuff. They had wrinkles, but not excessive wrinkle, you know? Yeah. And so, and you know, there's not one exact combination that you use every single time. And that's due to the individual dogs you use. You know, you got to use them. You got to see what they throw, you know, what's passed on. Anytime you use a terrier, that is strong. It's like salt in the soup or something. You need just a little dash of that. You don't need a cup of salt and a cup of, you know, you need just a sprinkle of that. And then every breeding you need to evaluate and see, you know, okay, where am I going from here? What did I lose? What did I gain? What went wrong? What went right? You know, and then, and I think with any breed you breed, that's necessary, you know, to keep going and to solidify. Then when you get it like you want it, you know, what's the next step? Lock that in.
Lock it in.
You know? Yeah, lock that in. And then you can go from there. But, you know, every program needs, well, an F1's the biggest outcross you can do. I mean, it's two different breeds together. I mean, does it get more outcross than that? And then, so there's your outcross. And then, you know, you're going to line breed when you get it like you want it, inbreed, and then go from there. But you need a balance of all those things. You need a balance of all those things to, you know, really get a consistent program and, you know, really have, when you work that hard, the future is so easy. When you work that hard in the beginning, and a few years of doing that and solidifying that, it's a beautiful thing. You can kind of kick back a little bit. You know what your dogs are going to do. You know what your line's going to do. You know, when you outcross, then you're like biting your fingernails like, shit, I hope this works, you know. Right. You can look at dogs and look at, you know, what are the features they have? Okay, does it match my dog? And look at the pedigrees, but everything in balance, you know, you got to look at all that stuff, but not too hard at one thing. You know, I always say breed the dogs in front of you. And I always do that. I always will, you know. I don't want to wish and hope. If it doesn't look like it's what it's supposed to look like, I mean, you know, I don't want to mess with that really.
Right.
Which one was the Shorty Bull when you seen it? You're like, that's the one I want right there. That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, we had one, Big Ben, a long time ago. He was one of the first ones, and he was like a little black one, and he looked like a little Angus bull, little, but
Yeah.
still had the features. I really liked him. Hef was another one. Hef was a cream dog, and in Shorty Bulls, after we got going, I started with mostly black and brindle dogs, and anyway, Shorty Bulls was the first one I could put two brindles together and get cream dogs out of. The first time it happened, I was like, "What? That's
Cool.
crazy!" Yes, and it did, and now I hardly have brindle. I have the cream, and yeah, it's funny how that happens, but yeah, that hadn't happened to me, and some other stuff, and then I bred a couple of brindles that just one had a little bib and one had a strip. Both were, the plain brown brindle. Anyway,
Mhm.
I had 7 puppies, and it was, they were all different colors. I think I got 3 brindle and whites out of that, but it was pretty amazing too. So, you can go back, you can see where it all came from and stuff. But, a lot of us don't do that till we're focused on that. you know,
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
we just like it. We're putting it together. This and accept color, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So that was kind of neat, surprising,
How much
Yeah.
do they weigh?
How much do Shorty Bulls weigh? Well, it depends. They vary. 40 pounds is like the max. Um, if they're under the height requirement, and they're a little bit over 40, okay, and they're not, just obese, that's acceptable.
Mhm.
40, but as they get smaller, like the 10-inch dogs aren't weighing 40, like Skids, everybody usually knows Skids. He's a 28-pound dog. So, Skids was pretty much where I liked him to be. But I did have some bigger than that. Everything I used though to make them and everything was within standard, and that was real important to me too, because I didn't want to do all this work and then, have something be too big. We don't
Yeah.
have a minimum. We don't have a minimum height, but it's going to take a while to get them really small. And, too small and too big. We want them right in the middle,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
14 inches. That's a good height for a little dog. That's still enough
Yeah.
dog there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of mine are about 12 or below.
Yeah.
Real 12 on a real yardstick with standard, measure, not translated like where 12 is really 9 or 9 is really 12. No, this is a real
Mm.
measurement, of height at the shoulder.
Who's
Yeah.
this dog right here in the picture?
Let's see. Oh, that's Casanova. That's not mine. That's the dog from Hawaii. Belongs to Sean Lopez at High Blood Bullies. But I'm a big
Oh,
fan of this dog.
I
Yeah,
like
I'm a
that
big fan
dog.
of Casanova. He's a little dog. He's about this tall, but
Yeah.
he's right to scale. Very compact. Yes, he's
I like.
active. Yeah,
I love
he's a
that
neat
head.
dog. I'm kind of in love with Casanova myself. Yeah, he caused a lot of controversy, because he has the little, bully
Bro.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
like his head though, with the
yeah, I really
ear
love this dog.
pocket.
There's a video of him on my page, and it's just him. He's not even manipulated with the leash, and you can see him moving around.
Mhm.
He's really a nice little dog, Props to Sean. Sean produced him, and yeah, I had his brother Ox. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice little dog. If you like the
Really
color
nice.
and stuff, there's one right there.
Yeah. I say like people make a lot of fuss about saying color doesn't matter, right?
I know.
But when I say that, I'm already assuming they're healthy dogs.
Right,
Like
right, right, right.
I would never pick a train wreck that's a certain color. You know what I mean? That'd be like,
I know you wouldn't, and I wouldn't, but there are
yeah,
people that do. There's a
yeah.
lot of people that do that. And like I said before, it's not just one thing. It's got to be a balance.
Right.
I wouldn't want my whole yard one color, really. I think
Yeah,
variety is good,
it
but I
is.
think it's easy for people to just get on a one track thinking with that color. And if that's what you like, that's great, and it's allowed in your standard. That's wonderful. But everything in every size, shape, and color is not. Then we don't have breeds anymore. When everything's allowed, we don't have breeds. I mean, do you want to have breeds? or do you want to have everything the same? And I know that nobody wants everything the same because that's what we fight and scratch and kick and scream over all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be special. I don't blame anybody. Of course, you should. It's a little bit of work to be special. You got to put in a little work. You know, it's more than hollering. You know, it's more than a poorly structured dog with the right color or a great structured dog that's brindle when you want blue. I get all that.
Yeah.
You know, but again, we got to keep it balanced, you know? Balance in dogs.
The litter
Yeah.
I bought my first Olde from, it was from Natural State Bulldogs, right? And they had 10 puppies. They had a black tri female that they bred to a lilac tri merle, and they got
Oh, wow.
they had blues, they had chocolates, they had lilacs, they had merles, they had everything. It was like, and it was like so evenly distributed. Like I looked at them like, this crazy. Like I didn't know they came like this. You know?
Yeah. So how long did it take you to make a pick?
Okay, look, the dog I wanted, the stud owner picked him. It was a guy named Franklin Sweeney. He's not really that active anymore. He, kind of doing something else. But I wanted that. My wife and I wanted that blue tri female so bad that his name became. We're like, oh, Sweeney got us like for the next 4 weeks. You know what I mean? Oh, Sweeney, you got me. Yeah. But
we hope for, consistency and everything we want, and then we get that in a litter, and then what do? You think you're just going to grab one, but it's the hardest choice. You know, when they're so consistent and everything you want, man, it's hard to make a pick, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And don't let nobody bring their kid over.
Right.
Yeah. I'll have to redeem myself for that one, then I'll get over it. Until then, it's going to be in my promo.
Yeah, just tell them they can name it. You pick it, they can name it.
Yeah.
You know.
So, I like the ear crops on the Shorty Bulls.
Me too. I love them. I love them. That was a decision we came to after a lot of ugly. Oh, whoops. After a lot of ugly ears, because we combined 3 different type ears. Okay, we had stand-up ears, flop-down ears, and rose ears. And what happens when you cross them? Well, the ears get bigger through the cross. You know. My God, if they stand up, they're like Dumbo ears. They're huge. Yeah. Or you have one stick up and then one's a rose. That drives me crazy. So I did the ear gluing for a while. Oh my God. You can do it. It takes so much patience, and it just takes a long time, you know? So my friend said, why don't you just have the ears cropped? I said, oh. I said, you know what? I love that idea.
Yeah.
I love that idea. It looked like 2 little devil horns up there, you know?
Yeah.
And so it does bring uniformity, you know, to something that's new. I really prefer them cropped, you know. Cropping's still allowed, and I love it. It's not allowed in other countries, but it is here, and it just brings the uniformity, and it gives them, kind of finishes them off, you know. And when the ears are natural, it just, you know, when you have the crops done at the vet, it really isn't that much different than a spay or neuter, you know. The dogs get the anesthetic, they get the surgery, you know, they come home, they heal up. It's not a big deal, you know. But it just looks so much more uniform. It looks nice. It's just clean and crisp.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I love it.
I've been saying for a while, I'm going to crop in Olde's ears. I don't know. I got to see him. He's got to be the right one. But the more I look at these dogs, I see that it really works with that head shape. Like it's nice.
Yeah.
And people get mad at me. They could be mad. I like it.
You know, when I had oldies, I kind of had signature ears on mine. Really, I had what some of my friends would give me a hard time, call them mud flap ears, because they were flapped down. They were heavy. They were thick. They were heavy ears. You know, heavy ears. I really don't think they would stand up if I had them cropped. I'm not sure, but I just think it'd be hard because they were heavy, and they wanted to go. You know, they wanted to come forward in 2 little perfect triangles. But yeah, they gave me heck for those. You know, they're like, oh, there's those river mud flaps. You know, and they were.
Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
let me dig back here, see if I can find pictures of some of your oldies.
Well, they're probably out of style now, but man, I love the oldies. I really did. I really thought that was a, cool breed. Yeah, I just can't get hit in the leg by those big brutes anymore. You know, they're a lot of dog.
Yeah, it is. Like I told you, my aunt got knocked down, broke her foot,
Yes.
and I feel
Yeah,
some kind of way about it. Like,
I know.
you
That's
know,
just, they're just big, man. They're big dogs.
Who got
yeah.
knocked down?
Anita,
Did she really?
yeah. It
Didn't tell
wasn't.
me.
It was just he was excited and happy to see her and ran towards her
Yeah,
and yeah,
tangled up.
yeah.
I can
You
I
know,
can easily see how that could happen. You know, all I have to do is get under your feet and wag their butt and wag their front end and boom, there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's the
wait.
ears. Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's Big Dirty. Cool dog. He was, yeah, I just thought he was beautiful, you know. That litter was a really nice litter. The whole litter turned out on that.
yeah. That's a nice dog. A lot
Thank
of
you.
muscle. I see you talking about the ears.
Yeah, we did a lot with our oldies, you know, as far as flirt pole and, dragon
Yeah.
weight and things like that, hiking, you know, in the loose dirt, you know. The loose dirt
Uh-huh.
on an uphill incline, I mean, it was almost straight up and down. Oh my gosh, that was the best workout. You know, they'd have to dig with their front end and push with their back legs, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to do that,
Yeah.
and good for them, really good for them.
Yeah. That's a monster right there.
Yeah, he was a cool dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If I could find another battle axe female AB, I'd probably try that again. Yeah, seems like they changed a little bit since we did that. You know, that was quite a few years ago, but it's hard to find those big girls. You know.
Megan says, or excuse me, MJR Bulldog says they think you should come back to the dark side.
If I can find the female, I would in a minute. Yeah. Just somebody else would have to do the work and stuff. I could match him up and whelp puppies, and then somebody's going to have to do the workout plan. Do you guys all do it? Do you guys all have a plan of working your dogs out or no? Or when you just hang out or like we were on a plan, you know? We did certain things, you know, several times a week for this long of a time. You know, we did little minutes of intense flirt pole work and then put them up. And, we did hang on the tree on the spring, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I
do the
mean,
flirt
we were
pole.
really
That's what
into
I do.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were really into that.
To the flirt pole, and then I got a spring thing hanging from the tree.
Uh-huh.
And usually after work, when on the days that it's not crazy hot or raining,
Mm-hmm.
which we're from California. This whole raining in the summer thing is strange to me still. 10 years
I
later,
know.
like
Yeah, I know. I
yeah, like
know.
today was pouring rain. And
Yeah, it's been raining here too, and it's just a weird summer because it's still, pretty good, pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. Who's this
Yeah,
guy?
but that's not mine. That's an English
No.
Bulldog.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
and that's yeah. We bred one of our females to him. That's Diddy, and
Okay.
yeah, he's an English Bulldog. I think he's gorgeous.
The name didn't age well, though, did it?
Oh, the name, yeah,
That's funny.
Yeah.
yeah.
He's a nice
Isn't that a
dog,
pretty
though.
Bulldog though?
It
You know,
is.
you can see why I chose him. You know, I like that his skin's, a little tighter and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. You know, I just really like that. That's my style.
He's
Me
just a
too.
ball of
I like the
muscle.
tight skin. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tight
He's
skin,
a
big
ball of
head. I
muscle.
like it.
He's got
yeah. I
hands
think he's
on
a
him.
beautiful dog.
Yeah. Let's see here. Wait. There we go. Trying to find some.
Oh, I have a million pictures on there. You know,
Oh yeah.
and I just
There's
keep
plenty.
putting more on there. You know, it's like
Yeah.
the history, but I think the social media platforms. I mean, it's nice that you can just go flip through that and look, and you can see how it's come and developed, over time. But, social media really changed a lot about dog breeding, dog breeds, everything. It changed a lot,
You
Yeah.
know, and the more I hear people, like we had Joe Rita, and he talked about the Dog World magazines and things like that they
hmm
had back then.
hmm
The more I hear about it, the more I wish I was around for it because
Well, it was cool because you had to wait. There was no getting around the wait. Everything
right,
today's so instant. That's a lot of snap decisions being made. But we had to wait. We had to wait for
yeah,
everything. We had to wait for pictures. We had to wait for Dog World to come out. We didn't even have cell phones. You had to wait till somebody was home so they could answer the phone. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
did a lot of writing of letters that you had to really mail. Yeah, and so there was a lot of waiting involved, which that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing.
yeah,
Maybe you had to wait to get mad, and maybe in that time you waited, maybe you weren't as mad, or maybe you were mad, or but you had to wait. It wasn't instant, and instant's good for some things, but it's not good for everything.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think I think it might have been better, a little better back then. But, there's a lot of other factors too. We didn't have as many dog breeders either. And, we didn't have, the internet's a great thing for information, but I'm going to tell you, not every article you read is true or even kind of true about dogs, about breeds, So, I mean, I just see a lot of misinformation out there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so, you really need to, when you're looking into a breed, make some phone calls and let people tell you about them, and then make your decision.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I agree. I
Yeah.
when I got, like I said, when I got my first oldie, I bought him from Natural State, and it's because that was the litter. I seen the dogs. I did my little bit of research, and the parents were
Right.
good dogs, and they were within driving distance. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go look. I'm gonna go look.
Mhm.
Never spent that kind of money before on a dog. Kind of, you know, it was
Yeah.
not.
I
It didn't
remember
seem.
that when I
Yeah.
did that.
So I'm like, I gotta go see. I gotta at least see these people and these puppies, and I gotta feel comfortable. And
hmm
now I can do it like this, no problem. But then I was like,
hmm
nah, I gotta go. I gotta go see. I gotta
I
go
know.
see.
Did you like pick it up and did you do the little test you read about? Did you watch if it came to you? Did you turn it on its back? Did you make a noise and see what it did? Did you do all that stuff?
No,
Or you just like that one? It was built right, had the right look like.
I
Yeah.
was more focused on the parents.
Uh-huh.
I didn't, because I was kind of told and heard that too. Like, look at the parents, look at and only mom was there,
Yeah.
but she was really cool. She was attending with her puppies,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I'll tell you something else. Until then, I was always told or made to believe that a female would rip your face off if you can't get nowhere near her puppies. Like, oh, she'll
Oh,
try to kill you. And that was the first time, like, I was like, oh, she let me rub the puppies, and
yeah.
it blew me away,
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I
Yeah,
was really focused on,
a lot of that is, how we interact with our dogs too, and
yeah,
the experiences that they've had. Yeah,
yeah,
we do really affect that a lot. But there's some that just won't have that. They really do want everything to stay away from their pups, and that's
Yeah.
you got to give those dogs that's normal too. You know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then I hate to sound corny or cheesy or whatever, but
Just go ahead. It's okay.
once one of my girls has puppies, I'm really involved in that process and all that,
Yeah.
and it's like it changes the relationship you have with your dog. They trust you in
Hey.
a whole another way, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yes, and you know what? When you're really fascinated with the dogs you're breeding and the breed, I mean, you want to be there and you want to, you want to help if she needs help, and you know, you want to see her through that whole thing, and make sure everybody's okay and make sure she's okay. There's a lot of room for potential problems anytime something's whelping, especially when it's the first time. It's the first time for you and the first time for her. That's even
Yeah,
more could be more of a situation, but yeah, you do. And you know the longer you have them and stuff, I'm terrible about retiring my dogs because I know they are used to this routine of mine, and it's a good life for a dog, and they know what comes next, and so it's comfortable. And it makes me apprehensive to think, okay, what if the cute wears off, and they just get shoved in the back pen and nobody looks at them again, my dogs aren't going to like that very well. Not that, I mean,
I don't think the cue wears off like that.
well, it does for some, I've had I could tell you some stories, but I won't, but you just never know what's going to happen. And yeah, I feel so responsible and I feel so, like, no, I'll just keep them unless I find an older couple, like older, or an older person, like older. Everyone I've placed with a, older person, like past 70s that still wants a dog, has been the greatest home ever. The dogs get fat, but I don't care. They're happy. They're fat. They're happy. The people love them. They, that's a good place. I've had the best luck there,
Yeah.
Yeah. But they do. They get used to a routine. All dogs want a routine, and the more routine we can be that's the same for them, the better dog they are because they know what comes next,
Yeah, their nerves are.
Yeah.
So you said they get older and the cute wears off. Well, it can. It can. I remember. Listen, this is the only dog that I can really. There was a lady. We used to live in an apartment in California. And this lady had an old pug.
Yeah.
This was the ugliest dog. Like, because they have their weird little pug features anyways. When
Yeah.
This dog got old. The eyes got even more buggy. The tail kind of unkinked a little bit. It was just weird looking.
Hey, I know you gotta love old dogs, really, that are, they go through changes that they're not morphing in a good way. I mean, up to 3, they're changing. You're excited for all those changes. They get 3, you're like, oh, okay, here it is, the prime. 4 is pretty good, 5's good, and then maybe they start graying in the muzzle, or, maybe they lose a little bit in their hind end, it's not as muscular. But when these 2 lumps of meat on the Bulldog's head, when they start to go, they're old, they're old, and you got to love an old dog too. You know?
Yeah. So I got a question. I got a question sent to me on my messenger.
Okay.
And, I'm gonna translate it. We're adapted a little bit, whatever. But it's now that you don't do oldies and you're out, kind of, for lack of a better term, outside looking in. How has it got better? How has it got worse as far as the oldie?
Well, it has changed a little bit in some respect, I think there's more smaller ones than there were back then, I think the height has, it's just a bigger gap of height, we see shorter ones, and up to the larger ones, and it seems like the F1 breedings are leaning more to one side or the other, maybe, where they should be a blend of, the cross or whatever. I don't know how many F1s are being done anymore. I don't know, for a statistic, how many are being done, but, I feel like, and I know somebody's going to shoot me for this, but there's always a place for F1s. If something's losing type, you need to stop right there and get it back with some stuff that's going to bring it back. Not mess around with stuff that's, it kind of has it, but it kind of doesn't. Oh, what, honey? Just a sec. Well, look, come here. I'm talking about dogs. You want to talk about dogs with me? There. See, you're on. Don't touch it. Just turn me off. This is my little buddy here. But no, and I think that I don't know. I think there's just a lot of confusion today that we had more universal principles and thoughts and things, years ago. And now it's just changed so much. We don't have those universal things like, you can change whatever you want almost. You can say, this is my preference, whatever. The shows have, it's just kind of all over the map, and that's teaches confusion. It doesn't teach like, we had to learn confirmation. We learned it. Didn't even know we were learning it. If you wanted to win, your dog had to resemble this, and it had to have these features. And too far away from that, whether you liked it or not, just wasn't it.
Mama, what happened?
Nothing happened. We just got to sit here for a second. It's okay. And so, You know, um, we have a lot of big ones, I think, than big dogs. And, I'd love to see more big dogs with those big heads and those proportions and that muscle. And, I'd love to see lots of them. And maybe I'm just not
Yeah.
in the right place. Maybe I'm just not in the right place. I wish the oldie people, kind of like the Shorty Bull people, I wish they'd come out more in the same place at the same time. It was cool to go to Chris Moore's show and Gina's last year in Virginia and see everybody standing next to each other.
Are you going again?
Yeah, everybody should do that if they're seriously breeding. You gotta, it in the ring. Yeah, you're compared to the standard. Out of the ring, you're compared to everything you're standing next to. Y'all need to go stand next to some stuff that you really like and see how you stand up next to that, because pictures and videos and all that, they're one thing, but standing right next to that, that'll give you a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
It really will, and it's just always better to see things in person.
Yeah.
And that was good to see everybody, that was there stacked up, different breeds, everything. It was a fun show. We went clear into the sun went down. We were still going. I had to turn the headlights on like the good old days. It was
I've
fun.
seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen that. That gave me like goosebumps when I seen it. Like, oh.
Yeah. It was a fun show. And yeah, I'm gonna go back again just to check the dogs out, and see the oldies and see what's happening. Yeah, because we got to keep this. We got to keep the muscle. We got to keep the proportions. We got to keep the bully head and look. We have to. We have to keep that. We can't let that get away, because that's selectively bred for.
Yeah.
So it's not going to just happen. But even selectively bred for, it takes a minute. It's going to take a long time. When something gets lost, it's going to take a long time. So, I hope oldie people come together and, push each other to, just make the best you can make better dogs, make good dogs. It's a beautiful breed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited about Beast of the East this year.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun. Yeah,
So.
I don't know if he's doing anything special this year, but I imagine so. There'll be something, that'll be real interesting for people to go to. But yeah, I hope everybody gets there, because it'd be great to see a bunch. Just a sec, sweetheart. Look at my friends on here. Can you tell them hi?
What's
This
up,
is my
buddy?
little bulldog. Yeah. I don't get to see these guys very much, so I'm hanging out doing my grandma stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Aren't we?
That's awesome.
Yes, I'll tell you what. It's a good time. It's crazy. I never thought it'd be as much fun as it is. It's a blast.
Is it more fun than the original set?
Oh my God, yes, all that. Yes, it's way better. Yeah. No. It's these guys and the dogs too. It's fun to have another chance to get these little ones around the puppies and the dogs and teach them that stuff, I feel bad for kids who don't get to grow up with a dog. They learn so much from a dog. So much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what dogs are here for. Our companions.
Yeah. My son, like outside looking in, he doesn't seem like he's really, really involved. But he's at the age where he's learning whether he wants to or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And they can learn a lot from that. A lot of lessons they'll keep into life, teach them responsibility and all kinds of stuff, It also teaches them what not to do. Teaches them also how to make your mom mad in a split second, They don't do that very often, but yes, it teaches them lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son, he came home with some kind of award, something they did with DNA at school. I was like,
oh really? Wow.
He's got that,
Yeah. That's another thing that's changed now is all the testing and the DNA and all those things affect, of course, how we breed dogs, And I mean, health testing, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I feel like it's, some of it's just marketing, but at the end of the day, you might have to use a carrier sometimes. That's just a fact, or you lose other things. Like I said before, it's all balance. So, it's a lot of things that make a good dog.
Yeah, there's absolutely value in it, but it's not absolute.
Right. Yeah.
So what's little man's name?
This is Radley. Can you say hi?
Hi.
And he's 3.
Okay.
Now he's just all clammed up.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk now, and you're not going to look. Okay, he's bashful.
Yeah.
Are
So
you?
how do you when you do you do like hip testing and stuff like that or?
I did. I did. This is my view on health testing. Okay.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
These Shorty Bulls. I when I started, took them in. We looked them over for the things that we could see. I didn't do any intensive testing. I used dogs that, were they had all the health that I want them to have. They moved and stuff. No luxating patellas. No obvious things like that. And so that's what we started with. I believe if you dig hard enough in the dirt, you're going to get dirty fingernails. You know, so this is what I say. I got them to 12 years, 12 good, active, good years. They're way past their, at 4, usually, that's a dog's prime. They start falling off. These guys last longer than that. So if they're healthy with minimal vet visits, they do what
Mm-hmm.
you want them to do. I'm not trying to find things that are wrong with them.
Right.
They're doing everything I want them to do, and they have 12 good years of that. Extending a dog's life past 12, I mean, people really need to consider that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want dogs to have to live to be 16 and be decrepit and crippled and, for the last 4.
Yeah.
And
And then
so,
by that time, the kid that you got the dog to grow up with, that kid's gone already.
I know.
And you just got no
I
dog left.
know. I know. Yes. And, there's a lot of bad breath and stuff when they get old. And not, that's just normal dog stuff. But I think 12 active years, 12 healthy years, minimal vet visits. I mean, when I say minimal vet visits, I'm saying minimal vet visits. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't see the problems. And, my dogs have a life that's not delicate or dainty or, I mean, they run and jump and stuff. And so they were made durable. I think that is a better health test to me. I mean, if I was buying a dog, I'd want to go and see, like, let me see these old dogs. All the people that health test, good for you. But where's those old dogs in the generations? I got generations you can see, that are still, they're old, they're healthy. They can still do all this stuff. So I'm not going to try to dig. If I have a problem
Right.
comes up, then that's a different story,
Mm-hmm.
and we can check that. But every dog's got something. And for the amount of things we can test for, there's a whole bunch of things we can't test for.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't guarantee all the puppies are going to be healthy,
Yeah. No.
And I think
No.
people learn a little part of that and maybe don't, finish the lesson on that. But it's just like anything else, There's a lot of dog breeders. Maybe it's hard to sell a puppy. Everybody wants to be different, whatever it is. Maybe you truly are just want these healthy dogs. Well, that's another thing too. I hope you get them, and I hope you get it so you don't have to do all that stuff to know they're healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel about it. I don't know. I just want a dog that can keep up with me. So I don't have to carry around,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to spend a fortune in meds and treatments and surgeries. I don't want to do all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that putting healthy dogs together is a good start. You know what
Yeah,
I
and I
mean?
think as breeders, that's something we all need to, get on the same page with. We cannot guarantee these perfect dogs that are they're gonna show beautifully. We can't. No breeder can guarantee that.
No.
I mean, we just can't. These are living things, and there's no two that are alike. When we're doing our marketing and talking about the product, these
Mm-hmm.
aren't tennis shoes. They're not. They're living, breathing things.
Yeah.
And after you have, a lot of puppies and you'll learn, sometimes repeat breedings don't even give you close to the same thing,
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, no matter what, we cannot make these just perfectly perfect every time. So as breeders, we need to be saying the same things, I don't want
Mm-hmm.
people to have unrealistic expectations when they get a dog. That just
Yeah.
sets you up for failure later. And I know if you haven't bred a lot of litters, maybe it's, maybe that frightens you a little bit to, maybe you don't even know what you can guarantee and what you can't and what a contract should have in it, if you even have a contract or whatever the case may be. But, as a breed, we should be able to pick out some certain things that we can tell them, look for this. This is how this should be. Don't expect this. And I think that would be very helpful to people, with all breeds. But we're all saying something different. And so almost everything we do leads to more confusion instead of more clarity,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think we could get better on that, really.
Yeah. That's the hard part, getting everybody on the same page about.
Well, I know it's hard. I'll leave that to you, and I'll just, retire, and you guys can figure that out. No, I mean, that's kind of a dreamy thing to say, but that would be nicer for everyone if that could happen. But, when we have 49 registries and each one has a different standard, and we have judges on every level from beginner to, OGs I mean, it's going to be different. But we could reel that in a lot.
And you judge shows, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've judged for a long time. Yeah.
ABKC or where else?
No, I didn't judge for ABKC. I didn't do that one. My son judged for ABKC for a while, but I've judged for a lot of different registries and a lot of different breeds, but mainly the bull breeds,
Yeah.
And and I trained some judges, because there's no judging school that anybody graduates from, And so, but there are certain things that, a good judge needs to know and needs to do. You need to know the breed standards, and you need to have a good message delivery, so you can explain your picks to people respectfully. And sometimes people can't understand that. There are people who come to the ring and have never read a breed standard, and the choke collar's on backwards, and there's a lot of things like that. Then we have to help them out. I think it's our duty as a judge to help them out. Now, not right after their class is over and they lost, maybe not right then, maybe after the show. But we have to do that. And, all judges don't know the same things or judge the same way or agree on the same things, but we could reel that in as well. Yeah. Because each registry has maybe a little different in the standard or something,
Yeah. I've jogged a dog around the ring one time. And I was.
And what'd you think of that?
I think that if I would have done more research and all that, and kind of had a better idea, but then I might not have done it. I might have been like, "Oh, it's just too much," as opposed to like, "Let's just go see what happens." You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And when you start and you've never shown dogs, if you've never really bred dogs, but now you got a dog now, you're reading all this stuff. Now you want to do everything. I want to weight pull. I want to breed dogs. I'm going to show up here, blah, blah, blah. You go in, you don't know anything, you think you might study a little bit, but the main thing that if you think you're going to show a dog, start with that puppy, get a bond with it. And whatever you do, don't go to the kindergarten class that teaches the dog to sit when you stop, because you'll spend the next period of time untraining that to stand when you stop. That's one of the hardest things. But, just getting your puppy to stand still for a few seconds, do that a few times a week. That's helpful if you show or not. If you need to take a picture, you need to show it to someone, standing still is a great thing. But if you get really serious about showing, I'd get a handler. The handlers know the tricks. They know what to do. They know how to work the dogs. We're going to spend a while learning all that stuff. Get a handler, and then you can set out on the ring and think, God, they make it look so easy, And it's a beautiful thing, because we can't do everything. I mean, it's just, we can try to, but, being great at everything,
it's a different.
We're not Superman. Yeah. But I mean, if you want to do that and you're into that, I'm not a shower. I'm terrible handler, the worst, So handlers are a great thing for me, and it's just good for, it's good for a dog and stuff too,
Yeah.
The handler's job is to make that dog look as amazing as it can, to enhance the good and hide the bad. That's a handler's job. So, we're standing there looking at the top down. We don't have any idea how its feet look underneath it, stacking it wrong. And then, then we're watching the video later, like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you give me a sign from outside the ring or something? So that's when I just said, heck, I'm not going to do it. Because with my American Bulldogs, they had a little same-sex aggression and they were drivey. And so, if they were built right, all I had to do is hang on. That's it. Hang on. There was no moving a foot or any of that stuff. Stay 6 foot apart and hang on.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
I thought I was a really good dog handler, but I found out I'm not really. Just with those dogs.
What's up, Joe? I might be weird, but like I said, we went to that show and and our dog was a little bit nervy at first, but then he kind of realized this was going on. He settled down, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then he made me proud. He made me proud. And it wasn't in the ring. It was this bully walks by and pisses on the crate with a Frenchie in it. I mean, just cocks his leg, pisses right by it, right? And I don't know if Bob seen it or smelt it, but as soon as that dog walked by his crate, Bob broke the crate. He was
Oh
not
man.
not having it. I'm like, good boy, good boy. Tell him to take that off the street. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a different
That's
level of
funny.
training and tolerations and stuff that, you know,
Mhm.
I don't want my
Yeah,
dog to be cool with no dog pisses on his crate.
Oh my gosh.
You know? So, but it was fun. So, Shorty Bulls are registered ABKC and where else? Like, what's
Tape on
the
your
other?
head? Oh my gosh.
He's
Look at
got
this
something.
kid. He taped his nose up. Are you trying to be a bulldog? Huh?
Hey,
I'm gonna
but
get that out.
it's not when it
What is
goes
that?
off, it's when it comes off is when it hurts.
I know. I'm sorry. What'd you ask me? Did you do that?
Where where else are Shorty Bulls registered at kind of in large numbers, whatever?
Well, here's the thing with Shorty Bulls. The original registry is Bull Breed Coalition, and that's the golden ticket. So, in order to protect our breed and you know the authenticity, you need the original BBC papers, you know, on the dog. When you have those in your hand, you take those and a copy of the pedigree, and then you can dual register with, I think, about everybody that's having a show. You know, you'll have to put it under their registry to show if it's a sanctioned show, and that's what you need to do that. And so, you
Does
know,
it
if
say
they're
right
having
here?
a class, whatever, yeah, that's all you need.
Is that it?
I think so. Yes. Gosh, you can't see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Bull Breed Coalition. Mm-hmm.
And that's the mother registry, huh?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's, you know, that's authentic there. So that's what you want. And like I say, then you can go whatever, you know, ABKC or whatever. You can't go AKC, of course, but you know, the registry's in here. You can dual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I like it. I really like the Shorty Bulls when I see them.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. They're a lot of fun. You know, I tell people maybe they have to graduate to Shorty Bulls. You know, if you're a big dog lover like you are, because I was too. I
Yeah.
just didn't want a little dog for a long time. And so sometimes, you know, you have to graduate to that, but it's a good alternative when you're ready for that, you know, and you still want a badass dog. Well, there they are, you know?
Yeah, I love the oldies because the difference in flavors, like that one, she's a
Yeah.
bodybuilder, she's a pocket. That one is not.
You like that. Okay. See, I'm
Yeah.
still from the old school where I'm like, oh my God, that should be varieties, you know, it's got to be this and that. And, you know, and those things change with time and generations of people. And, you know, and so you like that. So that's cool.
Yeah, because I have a wife and a child. Like my brother's single. There's no reason he can't have this big old badass dog. You know what I mean? You
Right.
got there's a butt for every seat, like they say in car salesmen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So and then
Right.
we can take them and put them together. And
Uh-huh.
when my
Yeah.
pockets get a little too pocket, there's something across town
Uh-huh.
and that's to me that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there you go. That's good. You know, I feel like this. I feel like every size, shape, and color and everything allowed doesn't, you know, pin the breed down to distinction. It just, for me, this is how I think distinction. When we show it, you know, it's the standard, the breed standard that the sanctioning registry has accepted as the law. And as judges, we're the cops in there. We can't
Hmm.
change it. We can't, you know, that's the law. To compete, truly compete, you know, we need those guidelines. You know, we need to understand those. you know, because if everything's okay, nothing's wrong, you know. I mean, that's not, I just feel like that's not as, you know, intense as this is the guidelines, you know. But for it to work, it needs to be fully understood, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, today maybe people think the breed standard, you know, is telling you what you need to do. You can breed for whatever you want. That's your business. But when we go to a show that's sanctioned by a registry, that standard tells it should tell us what to bring to the ring. This is what they're looking for. So if it
Yeah.
varies from that, you know,
Yeah.
then we have to discuss that. And the judge should, you know, judge according to that too. Not have, you know, a judge doesn't have as much preference as maybe you think. Like, you know, I can't go into a rat terrier ring and pick this one because I like bully dogs and that's the bulliest one there. I can't do that. I have to judge to that standard. And, you know, when we do have a breed standard, it just, you know, it keeps a breed in line, and the judges are the gatekeepers of it because the judges are the only ones that can put points on a dog. I can't, you can't, it's just the judges. So when they say breeders ruin breeds, it's not necessarily true. You know, we always have breeders can do what they want. But, you know, when they come to that show, this is what it should be. And the judges are the gatekeepers of that to ensure the future moves in the intended direction, because the words, you know, champion or grand champion, that's those words influence people.
Yeah.
They
You
need to
know,
mean something. They need to.
yeah, that needs to, you know, that for new people, that means quality. You know, that means almost perfection. What do you think today? Do you think it means the same I mean, does it mean quality? Does it mean perfection? Or does it mean a lucky dog on this day? I mean, you know, we really need to think about those things.
Yeah.
And I mean, and all that would do is solidify a breed, you know?
The sad truth for oldies as of right now is that,
Hmm.
like, they had a show here in Arkansas and we took a
Hmm.
dog, right? And
Hmm.
he was the only oldie there.
Yeah.
Somebody
See,
and a lot of people said, "Well, take two. That way, you get points and they'll count."
Forrest, you know that trick, don't you? Take your own competition.
But that I didn't know. No, no,
I know.
no.
So, you know, that's why we got to have these shows. You know, you
Hmm.
can say I'm not a show person, but where are you going to go stand up next to, you know,
Yeah,
other members of your breed? Where are you going to do that at? We got to have shows, you
Yeah.
know, but
yeah.
I wish oldie people would just come out, you know, get
I
together.
think
I don't know what
I think they're getting
entices
there.
them. Yeah, but that would be awesome, and it would be just really helpful across the board, you know, just to stand by each other, you
Yeah,
know. But you know, how much promotion do you need to sell a cute little fat wrinkly oldie puppy? They're so cute. They're so, you know, kissable and squishable, and you
some
know.
of them, not all of them though. The ones that are the heavier
I know not all
aging,
puppies are
or
cute. I know.
well, they're
Yeah,
still cute, but they're not. They don't got the squish factor like you know.
yeah,
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 but they wind
yeah,
up bigger. They wind up gorgeous. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I remember the head shape that I liked. You know, it was a little dish right here. You know, it was a little dish in their head that always finished out really nice. But you know, there's there's a lot of people with oldies, and I don't know what you guys got to do to entice them, but it would be great because it's a nice breed. It's a beautiful breed, and you know,
yeah,
we need more. I need a lot more Shorty Bull people to come out too. You know.
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know what's going to bring them out. You know, there's a show. There's so many shows. So you know, driving to shows, a lot of people don't anymore because in a month there's going to be one closer, or whatever. You know, so
yeah.
you know maybe we'll get that figured out. But yeah, these breeds need to bust out and be seen.
I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm with
Hmm.
it. And then
Yeah.
you talked about something else I want you to touch on,
Uh
and that is virtues and
oh. Okay. Yeah.
yes,
Faults and virtues. Okay.
yes,
I didn't make this up. That's a real term. I did not make up the term virtues, you guys. It's a real term. Virtues are the good things. Faults are, of course, the bad things. So we can look at a dog and it's easy to pick out the faults. Oh, he's straight stifled, got a hump, um, he's pigeon-toed, rye-jawed. Those things are easy to see. We can all see those, okay?
Yeah.
Or yeah, I mean, maybe you can see a couple of them, and as you keep looking, you'll learn more. Okay, virtues are the good things, you know. Okay, so he's pigeon-toed in the front, but is his head exactly on point with what you want? Does he have a lot of cheek that you want to incorporate into yours? Does he have a lot of bone? Whatever the good things are, well, then it makes a little more sense to use a dog that has a fault, then it has something else in there. So it's kind of, but if a dog just has faults and no virtues, like the best way I can describe a virtue is this right here.
Come on.
Okay, so a hunting dog is supposed to hunt, right? Okay. The conformation of a hunting dog can be terrible. If that's the best hunting dog, that's a virtue. You still need to breed for that hunt drive.
Mm-hmm.
And then straighten out the conformational flaws, if you can. So, a lot of people think that both dogs have to be perfect. Sometimes two perfect dogs don't do it, So, faults and virtues that's the good, is the virtues, that's the positive, and the faults are the negative things. And so in every breeding, we want to, minimize the faults and the flaws and accentuate the virtues or good things,
Yeah.
And do you have any more questions? I mean, did I explain that well enough? I don't know if I did or not.
How do we find the virtues in dogs without jobs, besides just physical?
Well, true. That's very true. But we can find virtuous traits, or I don't want to breed a bulldog without the proportions that I want on it. Okay, that's a virtue. And proportions, we're talking about, one thing in comparison to another. Big head in comparison to the body. It's not necessarily a measurement in inches, but it's in comparison to the body, So, those are virtuous things. And dogs do not have jobs. Most of our dogs don't have jobs anymore,
Mm-hmm.
So let's just get real to the fact of that. It's about a look we like. It's about features that we can get in bully breeds. I feel like it's the most bully we can get them without it impairing something else.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Temperament.
If you like, I mean, let's just go back to the basics. If you're drawn to bully stuff, what's bully? A shorter, wider, big head. Then it's not a greyhound with a long, narrow muzzle. So when you're drawn to that, when you're drawn to bully features, it's easy to exaggerate those. But you can only go so far before it is too much, and then it either turns to sloppy or it impairs, function. But to say the bulldog is impaired compared to the greyhound, that's not. Let's compare within the breed, because they don't have the same function.
A fish
right.
is impaired to running on land. It's impaired.
Yeah. So, just things that you like, things that are ideal in the breed standard, How many breed standards ask for a muscular dog? Oh, I see a lot about muscle this, muscle that, muscular, give the impression of great strength. Well, if it doesn't have muscle, I'm not exactly thinking great strength, No. So, yeah. And so, those are virtues. Let's say we get a dog with, a heavy muscle dog. And then you have your female here. What does she need? She's heavy muscled, but maybe her muzzle's long or something like that. So when you breed them, you're going to get the muscle, and maybe you need a short muzzle to get a medium muzzle, Yeah, things like that. And, the faults, there's major and there's minor faults. The major ones are usually have to do with the skeletal system, the skeletal structure of the dog. And the minor ones are faults or flaws that aren't really going to hurt anything or affect the soundness, like an ear set that's too high. That's not going to hurt anything. It's just not pleasing to look at to the eye. So those are minor, and so they don't count the same, Major faults count off more than minor, but and then you'll hear no dog is perfect and no dog is perfect. But let me tell you, there's a lot of dogs that are pretty close to perfect, about as perfect as we can get them, really. So I don't want everybody to think, every dog has major flaws and faults. every dog doesn't, you know,
Right.
and we're not, and consistency doesn't mean identical. You know, that's why bloodlines, that's why you can recognize bloodlines within a breed, because they have something, some feature that you can recognize as that blood, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, very consistent in the type, and the silhouette looks, you know, basically the same. And that's a kind of a fine line for people in the beginning. You know, it gets kind of confusing for them. They think it should be, you know, really tightly the same. But, and then we talk about how they're different and the two bloodlines are different. That's very confusing. Just keep looking at dogs and that'll become clear, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah.
one more thing. I
Uh-huh.
got some people that watch that we're getting out there now to outside of just the oldie crowd, and not everybody knows who you are exactly, or how to
Uh-huh.
find you, or you know how to access you, or your Facebook or your kennel name, things like that. You can share that stuff kind of on the way out. Yeah, I appreciate it. A little bit of
Okay.
marketing.
Got it. Yeah, you got it. I'm kind of hard to find sometimes. You got to do a little digging, but I like that. Yeah. My Facebook's what I keep up with. I don't keep up with the other stuff. You know, I just never had to. Word of mouth always worked for me. I never have enough puppies, and so I am kind of hard to find, but I love to talk dogs. If you get on my Facebook, my phone number's on there. Give me a call. I live out in the sticks, and the reception's terrible. So I might miss your call altogether, and it won't even show up. That's normal. That's not me ignoring you. Hit me with a message. I will call you back. Yeah, but yeah, Facebook is where you're gonna find me.
All right. That's Jamie Sweet and Blue River Bullies, or
Jamie
what?
Sweet. Yes, that's it. Jamie Sweet, Blue River, the MF River. I answer to a lot of stuff. Yeah.
MF.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, Jamie. Like I
That's a
said,
mighty fine river, don't you know? The mighty fine river.
okay. All right. I appreciate your time, Jamie.
Yeah.
It was fun, and like I said, I like the dogs, and it was good
Hey,
information. I
thanks for
appreciate
the
you sharing
opportunity,
with us.
you guys, and thanks to everybody that tuned in and listened. And you know, um, good luck to everyone doing this. You know, it gets hard sometimes, but stick with it. And if you ever need to talk and stuff, give me a holler, because I don't have a dog in the fight really anymore. So, you
All
know,
right. My man
sometimes
Trainyard
that
said.
makes a difference.
My man Trainyard said you gave a lot of great information, and he loves your dogs.
Oh gosh, thanks so much. I hope so. I like to share, you know. It'd
Yeah.
be a shame to waste everything that's up here. So I like to share it.
Yeah. All right, Jamie. We're gonna go ahead and
Okay.
sign off. Like I said,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Take care.
All
Have
right.
a
Have a
good
good
one.
night.
Bye-bye.